Welcome back. Bernie Sanders winning yesterday's Democratic caucuses in Wyoming. The victory extending his winning streak now to 7 out of the last 8 contests, putting the wind at his back for sure with less than 10 days to go until the delegate-rich New York primary. The Brooklyn native looking to gain ground there against frontrunner Hillary Clinton. All this as the former New York senator tries to regain momentum and avoid a possible game-changing upset in her adopted home state. Joining me right now is Luis Miranda. He is the communications director for the Democratic National Committee. Luis, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So how do you characterize the battle for New York on the Democratic side right now?
It's an important one, and it's interesting having one of the 2 candidates having been born there, the other one having it as her adopted home state. I think it's going to be an exciting primary, and for us through the party lens, it's been great to watch these 2 candidates go out and compete in so many states because it's energizing Democrats. We have a situation right now where one of our candidates has actually earned more votes than Donald Trump. The other one's raised more money than any of the others from individual contributions. In fact, Hillary Clinton has more than Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders has more votes earned than John Kasich and Ted Cruz.
Right.
And we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm. So for us, the extended primary actually helps us also to be able to test out and prepare the state parties to work towards the general election. So we're seeing a lot of optimism from this.
A lot of enthusiasm for sure, but nobody, very few people expected that Bernie Sanders would be riding this victory as strongly as he is. Do you worry more about Bernie Sanders taking the thunder from Hillary Clinton or about actual voter turnout? You say enthusiasm, but the numbers are actually down in terms of voters coming out.
Wisconsin was actually a good indicator. You know, we had 7 out of 10 voters, Democratic side, in Wisconsin saying that they would be excited or optimistic with either of our candidates. And that's what we're seeing generally is that we have a lot of enthusiasm on each side. But at the end of the day, I think that we're going to come together very strongly at the convention. Look, we did this in 2008. In 2008, it was easily the most contested primary that we've had on the Democratic side. And it was Senator Clinton at the time who nominated Senator Obama and who called for voting him in by acclamation. So you have a dynamic where I think that at the end, we're heading towards a general election where we're going to come out very united. I'd rather have the week we had than the week where Republicans had, where you basically had a bunch of endorsements coming out for Ted Cruz that were holding their nose. And basically, you know, you had Ben Carson even on television saying, well, of course there's people who are better qualified. And then this Idaho senator who just simply didn't even know what to say about having to endorse Ted Cruz. So I feel like we're going in. We'll be able to get united. Our candidates are obviously going to have to sort of show those differences between them. Right. But at the end of the day, we're going to come together at the convention in Philadelphia.
But what do you think we will see a contested convention on the Democratic side?
I don't believe so. I think that there's still plenty of time, plenty of convention for both of our candidates to sort of figure out their strategies. Obviously, they have to determine how to run those and how to do that best. But I feel like we'll have this settled before the convention. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, there's so many things to talk about, but I want to really get your take on what the conversation is around the delegates, because there is this feeling out there that the game is rigged when it comes to Hillary Clinton, because even though Bernie Sanders is winning in many contests the popular vote, she keeps racking up all the delegates as if they have been, you know, programmed before the contest even began, the delegates and the superdelegates.
Well, you look at a situation with the superdelegates, they're only 15% of the overall delegates. And so ultimately, the most important thing to determine who the nominee is going to be is the pledged delegates that are determined by the caucuses and primaries. Superdelegates don't actually vote until the convention. And so I think one of the things that happens a lot is that the news organizations report superdelegates as if those were vote totals, when it's basically just an informal poll of those news organizations calling up the superdelegates and saying, hey, who do you support? The reality is that they don't vote till the convention. So the only thing we should be looking at on any primary or caucus day is the total number of delegates. You have a situation yesterday where it's a small state and they have a relatively small number of delegates. So the split at 55-45 ends up giving them about roughly the same number of delegates, because you can't split a person in half. And so that's why you see that kind of dynamic at play. But look, we have proportional delegate distribution because it's a very democratic process. And so we feel very confident in the fact that we'll head into the convention with a clear difference in who the nominee is going to be, and that will come together.
And what do you think is most important to New York voters going into the primary?
Well, the economy. I agree with Ed Cox that I think the economy continues to be important.
Right.
I just think that we have to show the contrast and why Democratic leadership has been better. You know, when President Obama came into office, you had the stock market had lost 50% of its pre-crisis peak value, and so you look at where we are today with the strength of 73 months of job sector growth. I think anybody would take their chances in today's economy versus what we had when President Bush left office with 800,000 jobs being lost every month. So we have to draw that picture. We have to remind people what it was like when everyone was losing their homes and savings, and there was this looming crisis and an exploding crisis that really left our country in shambles, and just how far we've come, and say, do you really want to go back with Republicans, or do you want to move forward? And ultimately, we're having a spirited debate, but it's about how do we keep moving forward. So I think Democrats go in stronger.
Well, to be clear, the economy is sort of bumping along the bottom at about a 1.5% growth rate. But the talking point and the messaging that you're talking right now, how do you get that out and let it resonate with the people so they actually come out and vote in this primary?
We have to do a good job of organizing and getting out there and talking to voters. And so I do think that our candidates, they've got to compete with each other. They've got to draw those differences out between one another. But I do hope that they're out there also talking about the bigger picture of just how far we've come, and sort of make these points about the economic progress that we've made. They've got to be looking towards the general election, even during the primary,
Luis,
as we get further.
Luis, what about the FBI investigation around Hillary Clinton? I mean, if this does go down a road that you obviously would not want to see, like the FBI recommending an indictment or something like that, is there a plan B for the Democrats?
Look, I think that she's not the subject of an investigation, and even the president himself said
Well, it's her server, right? Her server.
Even the president himself said. I think one of the things that gets lost here is that the government is still adapting to
you said she wasn't the subject of the investigation.
Yeah,
of course
correct.
She's the subject of the investigation. It's her server. We know that.
But look, I think there's something that gets lost in all of this, which is that technology's moved very fast over the last 20 years. You look at the 90s, when the original Clinton administration was out, there wasn't much of an email. There wasn't even an internet in the way that we have it today. And so the government is still adapting to this. I think that's largely what we're seeing. But I feel that ultimately, come the general election, people are going to be voting on the economy, on how far we've come, on what kind of direction we're going to take on foreign policy. You have a stark difference between our candidates and their ability to mobilize the world around the objectives that we have.
So it sounds like there is no plan B, Luis.
Well, I just don't think that there's an issue there at all.
All right, we will leave it there. Luis, good to have you on the program this morning. Thanks so much.
Good to be on. Thanks, Maria.
Luis Miranda joining us from the DNC.